Hi everyone, welcome. I'm talking about 5 in-house oolong absolutes. These are by no means all of my oolong absolutes. I have a ton still in Vermont and some others here. And then I have a bunch that are still in tincture that I have not processed into concretes or absolutes yet. Later this month I'll be looking at some of those and maybe using open air evaporation to extract some of those. But I tend not to use my extractor for tea absolutes, and I'll get into that. But the reason I'm doing the oolong absolutes today is because I just started a 50% off tea sale. So these are tea perfumes, not necessarily Soliflor, although all my tea Soliflor are included. So the pu-erh, the oolong, the darjeeling, the sencha, and the rooibos, and I think those are all of my tea Soliflor. But all of my scents that include prominent tea notes, so ranging from white, yellow, black teas to darjeeling to oolong to green teas and pu-erh and rooibos. So I love doing tea absolutes. You tend to get a high yield. Now I don't usually use my low temp extractor, even though there's nothing wrong with using it. It doesn't really change the aroma of the finished product of the extract, unlike with certain flowers like lilac and hyacinth. The extractor kind of will alter the aroma of those from tincture to concrete or absolute. With tea, it's not necessarily a problem. I have run the extractor for my milk oolong absolute, and that was because I did such a large quantity that it made sense. And I've talked about this before. So in the vessel of the extractor, you can only use silicone instruments to sort of scrape out the rest of the absolute. Anything else will damage the finish on the extractor. So there's going to be a residue left behind, which you can clean and remove easily with ethanol. But most of my teas that I do are pretty expensive teas. They're rare, unusual, and I may only be doing like 1 or 2 ounces of tea. And so there's only 1 or 2 ounces of ethanol. So it doesn't really make sense to run the extractor, both from a time perspective, but also from if there's even 1 mil left spread along the base of the vessel versus just losing the alcohol to open air evaporation. The milliliter of the absolute is much more valuable to me than recuperating the alcohol. So that's the only reason that I don't use the extractor on most of my tea absolutes. It's just a volume and an expense reason. So I will filter them and then just leave them out in the open air to evaporate. And sometimes I'll leave a little bit of residual ethanol in the extract just for movability and depending on what type of perfume I'm incorporating it into. But sometimes I let all of the ethanol evaporate and it kind of leaves behind like a resinoid, which I'll show you in some of these. These are pretty much 100% evaporated, and they're just very small quantities. So like I said at the top, I'm going to be talking about 5 oolong absolutes that I did in-house, and I'm going from kind of light to like heavier, darker. So starting out with the Eastern Beauty Oolong. This one's from China. And then with the teas, usually you can get 2 washes, which are different than charges. So if you're, the charges is if you're charging 1 like batch of ethanol or the menstruum with the material. So you'll remove the aromatic material and then put in fresh material into the same ethanol. So that would be 2 different charges. Washes is if you re-extract the material with a fresh wash of ethanol. And so with tea, there's often so much aromatic material that you can do several washes with the ethanol. And you can kind of tell by how dark the first wash is if you're gonna get more out with a second wash. So this one I did 2 washes, and even from back here I can smell it. It's this very like almost like acetate and fruit scent, so very high toned. And then there's like this tangy like purple grape note. And the more it opens up, you're definitely getting like a fermented scent. And I'm just gonna hold it up. You can see how shiny and glossy it is. And it kind of looks like butteroidal. That word's always hard for me to pronounce. Like clusters of grapes, kind of. There's some strong aldehydic notes, so you could use this if you want to achieve an aldehyde effect in a composition, which is kind of surprising coming from an oolong. There's a real boozy element, but it's kind of like a rough boozy element. It's not super refined, pretty raw smelling. And there's like a paint aspect, not paint thinner, but like the thickness and the opacity of like an oil paint. So really interesting scent. I think I got some on my nose maybe. And there's a vague woodsiness there. It's not like an identifiable wood species. Kind of like sawdust. So that's the Eastern Beauty Oolong from China. And then next I'm gonna do Wuyi Oolong, that's W-U-Y-I. This one just smells totally different. It's very sweet. You can see it's drier, less glossy, almost like a coal or charcoal. And it has this warm, crumbly scent. And then I'm getting red incense, like some pink lotus flower. Like it's in like a powdered form, kind of like a Nag Champa incense. And then the woodsiness smells very much like hinoki wood to me, with cypress and like bay leaf in the background. And then there's more of these like warm spices like saffron. And then there's a muskiness that keeps coming in and out. It's like a tangy skin musk, but like not your typical oolong. This one feels more wild. Almost like a bog Labrador tea note. Yeah, and there's that muskiness, like a tangy skin musk. So pretty surprising for an oolong. It doesn't really have like a milky, creamy, chewy scent. Some of the last ones I'm gonna do have that. This one feels like the first one, raw, but in a different way, like more warm, woody, spicy. And then almost like the musk is kind of like a raw sheep milk. So that's the Wuyi Oolong. And then the third one is Jun Chiyabari Oolong from Nepal. This one I did 2 washes of, and I did get more out of it. This is just what's left. I've used it in perfumes. So you can see this one is very glassy, and even that like flake that's like rolling around at the bottom. And it's browner, less green than the others. The first one was like blackish with a greenish tint, and then the Wuyi was just pretty black. So this one has like a real strong citrus opening, and it's like bergamot and orange peel, with some of the tangy acidity that's typical of an oolong. But it's kind of surprising with that citrus element that it almost reminds one of like an Earl Grey tea. And now I'm getting like the ripe, like the ripeness of like sun-soaked raspberries. Little bit of green buttermilk, but then there's just this deep brown tea, like fermented, earthy brown tea, followed by like the sourness of like iced tea, unsweetened iced tea, maybe with lemon in it. And then going back to like the fermented note, it's almost like a red bean paste. So this is the Jun Chiyabari from Nepal, Oolong. And then the fourth one is Barisan Oolong from Sumatra. This one is also pretty black and also glassy, not as glassy as the Jun Chiyabari. This one smells the most like Darjeeling to me, even though it's an oolong. So there's like an astringent spring greens and like clover scent. It's very bright and uplifting. I would say sprightly. And then there's like this kind of like a rich grape smell with like a husky dried straw back note. So that's the Jun Chiyabari, or no, sorry, that's the Barisan, the Barisan from Nepal. Nope, not from Nepal, sorry. I haven't had enough coffee this morning. This is the Barisan from Sumatra. I'm not sure if I said that at the beginning. And then the last one is the milk oolong. And this is just part of, so when I did use the extractor on this one, and you can see, and I got many vessels of absolute out of it. It was extremely high yield. So, and I had so much of it that I didn't feel bad about using the extractor and losing like a few mils to the bottom of the extraction vessel. And I think I had like 32 ounces of milk oolong, and I got like, I'm trying to remember the number of jars that I got out of it, probably 4 ounces of absolute. So that to me is a pretty high yield. Yeah, it is like, and I mentioned this at the top, I let so much, especially in this jar in particular. The other jars, the 2 ounce jars that I have, I still have a slight amount of ethanol in them. This one, it has pretty much evaporated, so it does look like a resin. So you could like call it a resinoid, even though it's not actually sourced from a resin, but it has that appearance. The 2 ounce jars that I have are much more movable. So the scent of this is like very chewy. Yes, I do sell, I believe the milk oolong absolute is for sale in on the website, not in the Etsy shop. And then I will sell the other ones on like a